would you be if you didn't know how old you were? How old would you feel? Dr. Nick joins us this morning. He next month turns 65. Yeah. Do you feel 65?
Well, I guess that's why we're talking about it, because I'm really beginning to feel it. I am.
And I'm shocked to hear you say that.
I'm beginning to feel my age. I'm beginning to feel my age. But you know, before we go into that, can I just say something else that just dawned on me as we were getting into this? Why is it that being 65 is considered bad? Why is it that 20 is so great? Why is it that 15 is so great, that 40 is so great, that as we get older, life doesn't get better? I just think there may be some bias against aging. Because slowing down physically doesn't necessarily mean one's slowing down spiritually or necessarily mentally or necessarily joyfully.
Right.
Maybe there's a joy that comes with being older. I mean, no, I don't feel 64. I don't feel 64, but I am.
Yeah. And you feel it. You feel closer to 64 now than you ever have, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
But I also feel that the value of that is that I just don't feel like I'm not pushed. I don't feel as compulsive.
Do you know that I have just felt that in the last year?
Talk to me.
I'm 52, and I've just felt in this last year like I'm not constantly pushing myself, and that I can really just have a lazy day.
Yes.
And that I really don't have to look at emails 3 times a day, which, by the way, have started to drive me crazy because there's so much spam and stuff in there. I'm almost over it. I'm almost just completely over emails. But it would panic me before if I'm like, oh gosh, I haven't checked it in 2 days. And I'm really okay with it now.
Good. Yeah, good for you. And didn't you say that, and again, I think you've said to me before that every once in a while you might feel an ache or some kind of, I mean,
I sleep on my back a lot. It doesn't mean
you're not in great health.
Oh, no, but I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh boy, I sure didn't move much last night. And yeah, lower back, I'm like, ow, and it takes a little while to go away. That's a sign that, you know, you ain't what you used to be.
Yeah. So this question of, you know, how old do you feel and how old would you be if you didn't know your age? I don't know, Whitney. I'm just really beginning to struggle with that. I could say to you that, okay, somebody might not feel 50 or I don't feel 40. Well, you know, we catch up. Sometimes we have to catch up to the age.
Yes.
And that's, it's hard to explain, but it's like sometimes I do feel like 21 until I've had a couple of drinks and then it's like, I don't want 3 more. I could have done that when I was 21, but I can't do that anymore. I don't want to. You know, just the whole, you said something I think that's important. As we get older, even at 30, 40, 50, we begin to experience more and more of our limits. Mm-hmm. When we're adolescents, we don't feel limits.
No, that's true. Invincible.
Even when we're in our 20s, I don't know that we feel a lot of limitations. We see that world out there waiting for us.
Yeah.
And as we get older, that world becomes a little bit smaller. And I think we become more at peace with where we are.
Yeah. I think we get a little more grounded in reality.
Grounded in reality.
Which is not a bad thing.
Grounded in reality. And maybe even more grounded in what we really like and want to do with the time that we have.
Great point.
We start making choices that fit in with, you know, I've only got this amount of time. I just think of when I was young, I thought I could do without sleep. Honey, I got to have 7 to 8. And at times I might take 9.
Right. do you ever think, so we're just being raw here, that you may only have 20 years left on this earth?
That's another interesting point. I was getting on the elevator a couple of days ago, and I was thinking to myself, I'm 64 years old and I'm tired. And all of a sudden it hit me. I might have 20 more years. Stop it, Nikki. Stop it. You may have 20 more. 20 years is a long time. Don't start thinking of it's the end. Think of what's that next chapter going to bring. And it probably will be different and slower and less expensive. Not that I live with a lot of spending, but you know, you got to kind of pull back as we get older.
Sure.
Because we don't know about health concerns.
Right.
You know, and long-term health problems. But it struck me that 20 years is a long time. I could live to 84. My uncle was 82 and doing great.
Uncle Jerry, yes, absolutely. But think of how far you came from when you were born to you were 20 years old. I mean, huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that you can't accomplish a little bit of that between the next 20 years. I mean, I'm saying you can do a lot in 20 years.
Yes.
You're not going to achieve that kind of growth and that kind of learning probably because you know so much and you've grown so much. But there's 20 years.
20 years.
You can do a ton of things.
There's another thing that strikes me that when we talk about age.
Okay.
I think that sometimes we get caught in, oh, I'm 64. You know, what do I have in common with a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or even a 50-year-old? Okay, because I think that's crazy.
That is
I
crazy.
think we learn from every age group. We learn from every age group. We learn all sorts of stuff if we've got a curiosity and a desire to understand where people are living in that moment. And I think my nieces and nephews, I think they enjoy the fact that I talk about I'm older and my experiences of growing.
Of course they do.
And how I've learned and what I've learned. And don't you think?
Absolutely. And I know that
younger people really look to older?
Absolutely. And I know that you feed off of their experiences and what they're going through, and it's the fascination of their world.
I do. And what's most important about it is that people are suffering at every age. And I'm not trying to make this a downer. Everybody's struggling with something at every age. I don't need to try to be 40 anymore. 40 had its problems.
Yeah.
30 had it, right?
15 had its problems.
15
Let's think about those years.
And still does.
Yeah.
And still does. But there was something else we were talking about before the show, and that was that there's generational gaps. There are generational gaps, and sometimes we have to realize that we don't have a lot in common. Let's say
like you're not gonna date a 30-year-old,
right? Well,
over my dead body.
But don't you also think that even 10 to 15 years gap in say a marriage, there's a little bit of a generational gap there.
Sure.
Now that doesn't mean it's not workable, but I'm just saying we realize, wow, I'm not there anymore.
Right, and yet there's 13 years difference between us, and I never feel a generation.
There is 13 years difference. Yes, I do. I do. Yeah, because you don't ever want to come home. Now you've gotten a little bit better, but there have been really many times when I've like, Whitney, we've got to go. I mean, I'm literally dragging you because and I
want to keep dancing. But in conversation, I bet you don't.
But there may be one other thing that we need to throw in to make sure that we're fair. I do believe that people can be very old and young at heart.
Yes.
And I love to be with people that I feel are young at heart. And I can't even explain it, Whitney, other than say I just know when I see it.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't you?
Absolutely.
I think of your mom and dad. You know, I think of my dad, just young at heart, just joy, just pure, all is well.
Yes, and speaking of joy, my grandmother's name was Joy, and after she died, we could all take something out of her. She was a poet, so something out of her office, and I took this, and I love it. And it's a quote by, and you're not going to believe it's a quote by Picasso, but it is, and it says, "It takes a long time to become young."
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that great?
I love it.
It takes a long time to become young.
I love it. So that helps explain why people will say sometimes, how young are you?
Yeah.
I'm 64 years young.
Yeah.
Or I'm 90 years young. Takes a long time to become young. It's a good one for an ending.
I love it.
Enjoy your age, everybody.
Thanks, Dr.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. More Weekends with Whitney after this.